Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for our first year experience panel. My name is Skylar Kuhn, and I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at Washington College. Joining me tonight are three of our Family2Family volunteers. They are all parents of current Washington College students, and they'll speak about what their child's first year experience was like at Washington College. Joining me tonight are Charlene O'Connell, Christina May, and Michael Collins. We'll begin tonight with each panelist introducing themselves and answering some frequently asked questions, and then we'll end with a question and answer session. Please use that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to submit questions for our panelists tonight. You're welcome to start sending in those questions whenever you think of them. If we're unable to answer your question live, your student's admissions counselor will be in touch later. Keep in mind, if you submit a question anonymously, we will be unable to follow up with you as we won't have a name associated with that question. We've allotted 1 hour for our session tonight. So without further ado, I will let our panelists introduce ourselves, and I'll first hand over the floor to Charlene.
Thanks, Skylar. My name is Charlene O'Connell. It's a pleasure being here this evening. My daughter Paige is a sophomore at Washington College. We are from Fairfield, Connecticut, and Paige is studying elementary education. She is currently a member of the women's soccer team and just started an internship this year for teaching. I'll turn it over to Christina.
Hi there, my name is Christina May. I am from Keene, New Hampshire. My daughter Olivia is a sophomore as well. She is involved with the women's rowing team, and she is an RA this year. And she's loving it there, being back on campus. I'll turn it over to Mike.
Hi, Michael Collins. I have two daughters at Washington College. Sarah is a junior and Abigail is a freshman. Sarah and Abigail are both members of the Student Senate. Sarah is in the AO Pi sorority. She's held positions for the SGA. She's a member of the Interact Club, the Animal Impact Club, where she's the president. She's the secretary for the class of 22, and she's on the Student Life Committee. Abigail, my freshman, works for the GIS lab on campus, and she also belongs to the Model UN. And I live in Chestertown, Maryland, so I am 5 miles from the campus.
Thank you all so much. So if you have any local questions, it sounds like you can go to Michael. All right, so we can get started with some of our introductory questions tonight, and I'll ask these to all of our panelists. Our first question is, how was your student's adjustment to life at Washington College?
Okay, I guess I'll answer that. We were very fortunate. Paige adjusted very well. I mean, she is fortunate to have an older sister who she saw go through kind of moving away from home. But when everyone refers to the Washington College family, it truly is a family there. And any little bumps in the road, she was able to find someone to help her and make her first freshman year, as much as she was there last year, a pretty smooth transition. And she is just thrilled to be back there this year.
My daughter Olivia also transferred over pretty well. She was also a camp counselor the summer before she came to college, so I think that helped a little bit in the transition for everybody. She is definitely loving her experience there, and I think being involved in lots of activities has helped her make that adjustment a lot, and it's very helpful.
You know, for my daughters, they had two different experiences because my oldest was on campus during the orientation process, which is almost 2 weeks, very immersive, and she had, all the advantages of being in person. And she was ready to go. She loved it. She made so many friends with not just, her classmates, but upperclassmen and, faculty and staff. And for my Abigail, who was home during the pandemic this year, she was able to have almost everything that her sister had, but online Zoom meetings. They had, Zoom scavenger hunts. There was so many activities for her to stay busy. They were super, super creative in making sure that she would have almost the same exact experience, although in a Zoom format like we're in right now.
Great, thank you all. So our second question is, what resources did either you or your student take advantage of during that first year?
Sure. So as I mentioned, Paige's transition went fairly well, and I think part of it was that she reached out for assistance when she needed it. She is a member of the soccer team, and I know she reached out to some of the upperclassmen when she needed, help with a class or kind of advice on how she should handle a situation. She also took advantage of reaching out to her teachers. She went and used the writing center pretty frequently, as well as the math center. And she even had to use the health center. And everything turned out to be, wonderful. And everyone at that college is very responsive, very helpful. She never felt left out or lost. And I think that really helped make the transition, really smooth. And she had a very successful freshman year. As far as myself, I've joined this wonderful Family2Family program, which has been great, getting to learn even more about the college and meet wonderful people. And I've also been involved with the soccer team and meeting the parents there and coordinating events. So it's been a wonderful experience for all of us.
Olivia has used a lot of the same resources, definitely the health center a few times. The tutors and the teachers are all great. If she ever needed help, she has a hard time asking for help. So she'd call me frustrated and I would just have to say, have you asked your teacher for guidance? Or, if they could explain it a little more, or if you could have a little more time on that. And, begrudgingly she would reach out and I'd say, how'd it go? She'd, oh, it was great. They were really understanding and they were really helpful. So I think she's gotten a little better about doing that now than she had in the past. But yeah, being involved with the rowing team really helped and helped her learn some different parts of the college that I think maybe if she hadn't been involved in that, she wouldn't have known about.
Both of my girls have mentioned the writing center as well. My Sarah, who's a junior, still uses it all the time. They had gone to a school that only used one writing format, and having used different writing formats, my Sarah was lost. She went to the writing center, and she's been going there ever since. Whether she has writer's block, she needs an extra set of eyes. The tutors there are phenomenal, and both of my daughters use that resource all the time. And the peer mentor program is really great for them as well. Just somebody that they could talk to if they're having an issue. Is this normal? Is this normal to feel this way? The peer mentor program has been really great for both of them, and it's a nice established program that they have for everybody to use.
Thank you. Yes, we have lots of great resources, and I wanted to thank Charlene for mentioning Family2Family too. I'll just give a little shout out. All of our panelists here tonight, they're volunteering, so they do have current students on campus. We also have some volunteers who have students who've already graduated, but the point of the program is to match families up. So these are some of our current families. You all are prospective families. If you're hoping to connect with one of our current families and ask their questions, we'll put a link at the end of our webinar tonight where you can sign up. All right, and our third opening question, this is the last one before we open it up to that audience Q&A. What is one piece of advice you would like to share with our incoming parents?
So Christina touched upon this a little bit, and I alluded to it, is really let your children try to figure it out. It's a wonderful community. They will watch out for your child. But if they can start to navigate for themselves and be an advocate for themselves, it's just going to make their transition that much easier and that much stronger. And I've just been amazed at the conversations that Paige and I have had this year versus last year. And I think she just had a good foundation built last year as a freshman, with me saying, like Christina, I think you should talk to your professor, or is there a guidance counselor, an advisor you can go to ask about that, as they're trying to figure out their major or classes they should take. But the school, everyone is extremely responsive, and she's never come back to me with a story of, I couldn't get help, no one responded to me, I didn't know where to turn. So kudos to the school. We feel very comfortable with her down there. And so if you let them figure it out, they'll do a great job, and there's plenty of people to help them.
So my biggest piece of advice that I have given prospective families who I've been in touch with is to make sure that you have some kind of either plan or agreement with your freshmen as to when they return home. Because you have to remember they're going to be on campus and living their own lives and being adults. So when they get home, I think a lot of people are used to, well, when you're home, this is how things happened last year during your senior year. It's a little different. So my daughter and I had some good talks before she left about what would be and would not be allowed when she was back home. And, remembering that they are functioning, on their own as adults, and remembering that, yeah, they're always going to be your kid. But, you got to give them that freedom to, like Charlene said, is, grow and learn to be on their own, which is only going to help you down the road, when you're trying to, kick them out for good. And definitely, I have one other thing is being a part of that, the Family2Family has been, I was not a part of it when my daughter was looking into schools, but I have been a part of it. And I've actually connected with a couple families that I still keep in touch with, and have plans to meet if we can ever get back on campus. And that's been really great. And the Facebook parent group has been really great, because it is very well, a lot of people think of different issues or questions, and it's monitored by someone at the school. So normally you can get an answer pretty quickly, and it's very helpful.
The advice I would give, this is based on my conversations that I've had with my daughters, asking them the questions. The big thing is, take advantage of all the programs, starting with orientation. It really builds those relationships with, other students and then faculty and staff. My youngest child is a political science major, and she loved this one professor whose class she sat in on. She while she was a senior in high school, she came for another visit just to sit in on another one of her lectures, and she reached out to her, and now that's her advisor, and she's absolutely thrilled. She's to the moon, and she's starting to read some of that professor's books as well, and she has forged a really great relationship. And here's this professor who is writing books. She's on MSNBC, but she takes time to speak to my daughter all the time, which is really awesome, and it makes her feel important. And the faculty and staff have such great relationships with the students. They're always available. They're really invested in their education and invested them as people. And the other piece of advice for incoming freshmen is there's so many clubs. Join some clubs. That's a great way to make friends. It's also a great way to expand your horizons. There's going to be things that you're interested in. My oldest had volunteered at shelters all her life, so joining the Animal Impact, which is basically a group that volunteers at the shelter, was super easy for her. But some of the other clubs that they've joined are things that were outside of their comfort zone, and they've appreciated that, and have helped them grow as people.
Wonderful. Thank you all. So we do have some great audience questions coming in. Again, this is our audience Q&A portion. So if you have a question for us tonight, use that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. This first question is one that I'm going to address. This question asks, will Washington College ask students to live on campus all 4 years? So yes, you should expect to live on campus all 4 years. Washington College is a majority residential school. Of course, this semester, everything is completely different. We do have a lot more students off campus than ever before, just because of our protocol with COVID-19. This next question is for our panelists. So this family wants to know, when will incoming freshman dorm assignments and pairing of roommates happen? Do you all remember when this happened for your students and kind of what that process was?
Yeah, so it happens over the summertime. What the first step is, everybody gets a questionnaire, sort of like a personality assessment, and also a lifestyle assessment. Do you stay up late? Do you wake up early? You certainly don't want to be a night owl and be matched up with somebody who wakes up early. So they do this big assessment, and then once that happens, it comes back in, they match people up that would be good roommates.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's any different. When Paige was applying, she opted to kind of find a roommate on her own and not be matched up through the school. She had started connecting with various athletes, and she is a student athlete there. And she opted to room with an athlete, but not a soccer player. And did that on purpose, thinking that maybe she might need a break, from her team. And it was probably one of the wisest choices that she made. And she just was able, they could both vent about a game or a team or a practice or something at a game, and not have it be adversarial at all. So it worked out well. She's rooming with soccer players this year, but by her choice. But the freshman year, I think it was a good decision, worked well. So if your child is thinking of going that route, I think that also can work out if for them.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so there are two avenues you can do, the roommate survey, and then also if you come in knowing somebody else, even if it's, connecting over Facebook or something like that, and you meet each other, as long as you both write each other's names down, Housing and Residence Life will place you together. So it's nice that we have kind of the two different experiences there. Okay, so this next question is for those of you with students on an athletic team. So maybe for Paige and Olivia, was it hard for them to balance academics and also being on their team, and those commitments?
Olivia was involved in a lot of sports in high school, so I think it rolled over from there pretty well, knowing how much she needed to, time to, dedicate to schoolwork or team, or even she had a job as well. So it parlayed over pretty well. But I think when you get to college, it's a little next level, and it's definitely more intense. Earlier mornings, later nights. But I think having a good foundation before you leave on some time management skills really helps. And there were times where she'd be like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have gone to this or done that, instead of doing schoolwork. And you know what, they learn.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think if your child played a sport in high school, they're accustomed to a schedule. And I just will add that, they're still students first. And, the coaches, or at least the soccer coach, our experience has been, they're very understanding that your classwork and your schoolwork is your priority. Your students will come across a conflict with practice when they have a lab or things that they really can't switch. And it's never an issue. It's never a question. He doesn't want to hear that she's missing practice because she hasn't finished a paper that she's known about for a week. But certainly for things that are labs that she can't reschedule, he's very understanding, and they're students first, and then they're athletes. So yeah, it's worked out well for Paige.
Thank you. So this next question asks about things right now where we're living with COVID-19. So are students attending classes and athletics on campus?
I can jump in. They're not attending classes yet. It is virtual, I think, for this month. And then if I don't remember the exact date, I'm sure Skylar can jump in. But they are having sports practices. They're tested multiple times. They're tested again as members of the sports teams. And knock on wood, things have been well down there and COVID free. So they are practicing. As far as using the indoor facilities, I know they started like lift practice in the morning. Small numbers, they're wearing masks. I mean, they're being, very safe, but some sort of athletic life has resumed, and she's off season. So I know, for kids that are in season, they are playing games as well.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's right. Right now we are doing just virtual classes, but we do have students back on campus. So this is a change from last semester. Last semester, everything was virtual and we didn't have students on campus. Right now, all of our teams are practicing too. So even those teams that are off season. So thank you for that. And then there is a second part to this question that I'll take. Are future students, so prospective students, allowed to visit or attend a sporting event? So there's two answers to this. Allowed to visit? Yes, absolutely. I was going to mention this at the end of our webinar, so this is great. We are open for public campus visits. They are almost the same. We do follow our protocol for COVID mitigation as set forth by the CDC. So we do have smaller groups. You have to wear a mask the whole time you're on campus, even outside on our tour, but we are still doing information sessions and campus tours. So please, if you're interested in checking us out, definitely come see us. As for sporting events, this is something that was set forth by the Centennial Conference. We don't have any public visitors at sporting events. So you're welcome to visit campus as a member of the public, but unfortunately not our sporting events. Okay, I really like this next question. So did any of your students say, I wish I had this, or I wish I did this in their freshman year?
I will say my daughter overpacks. So if anything, leave them wanting something, because they end up adding to their rooms and to their, stuff as the year goes on. And getting back with everything in the car was a little difficult and very cramped. The only thing I can think is an area rug was something that she really wanted this year, as opposed to last year. Just to make it feel a little bit, homier in her common space. She's in a suite. So that might be something that I've told her, find a friend with a car and run down to, a store and buy a really cheap one and I'll pay you back. And then we'll just, donate it somewhere, or, depending how trashed it gets, throw it out at the end. But that's the only thing I can think of that she was like, oh, it'd be really nice to have a rug.
I was gonna say, I agree with that. They do overpack, but I can't think of anything that, was so, oh, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had packed that. And there, there's so many resources down there that, you can pick things up, and Amazon ships. So it makes it very easy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there was anything that's come up that they wish they had done differently or had done at all. I think they're pretty happy with it.
Great, thank you. Okay, this is a question about having a car on campus. So are freshmen allowed to have a car on campus, and what are the pros and cons in your opinions?
So I believe freshmen are allowed to have cars on campus. My daughter does not. And the pros are, you can get around a little bit better, but I don't think Olivia ever felt like, especially last year and this year, that she was cut off from anything by not having a car. She had to go visit a couple of specialists off campus. And I think they were within walking distance to her dorm. And she did have a couple of friends that had cars. So they might have jumped in a couple of times and gone, over to Annapolis, or the next town over, I can't remember what the name of it is, where there's a little more going on as far as, fast food and maybe some bigger stores. But I think a con of having a car is everyone's always going to be asking you for rides.
So my Sarah did have a car on campus her freshman year because she did keep the job that she had all through high school. So she's probably one of the ones that was used to give rides to other friends, but she also found that there was enough cars around that everybody could get a ride to either Centerville or Middletown, depending on how far you want to go. Those are the two towns that are closest that have better fast food options.
Yeah.
But my Abigail doesn't have a car on campus, and she's just fine even without her sister.
Paige did not have a car freshman year. We did send her one this year. It was more for our sanity rather than doing the longer drive back and forth. But I don't think it's necessary. There are plenty of people who can give them a ride, and like you said, to Middletown to get their Chick-fil-A or whatever's over there. That it was never an issue. She never felt like she was stuck on campus, and wanted to leave for a short visit or a short trip.
Thank you. And this next question has been mentioned already by a couple of you. Have your students access the Writing Center or the Math Center? And do students have to make appointments, or is it just walk in?
I believe they have to make appointments. Don't hold me to that, and Paige has used both. I think she was using the Writing Center this week as well. So I think it sounds like it's pretty easy to get appointments. And I think the math group has students who are there as well, the math center, that they can help you with homework, that there's always several students there. So she found them both very easy to use, very beneficial, and highly recommend them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you have to make an appointment, but there was never a situation where they need to make an appointment and couldn't get one in a short amount of time. And like I said earlier, both my girls swear by the Writing Center.
Great. Okay, so this next question asks, I'm curious if any of your kids transitioned from urban living to small town living and what were the benefits and challenges? So this one might be more for Charlene or Christina.
Yeah, so we're from, I guess, a larger town. We're in southern Fairfield County in Connecticut. But she, she liked the quaintness of Chestertown. She wanted a small campus. So, there were some great attributes there that really appealed to her. And I don't think she regrets it 1 minute. And we were talking before this started earlier among us, and we love visiting. It's a really beautiful campus. It's a beautiful town. It's really quaint. So I think she's really, enjoyed, what that town has to offer, even if it is, different from ours.
So I guess Keene, New Hampshire is considered a city for New Hampshire. So Olivia she was bent that she was going to college in a big city because she was tired of living in a little town. And she looked at a lot of bigger places, some in Baltimore and some in New York. And when we were driving out for the first visit at Washington, we're going through the cornfields. I'm just, driving through and was like, well, this is kind of a wasted drive. She's never going to go to school here because she had been so bent on going to somewhere in a big city. And after the second visit, we had gone for a second visit, she turned to me and she's like, Mom, I really like it. And I was like, it's okay, you can really like it. But I think she was afraid to admit it at first. But she just loves it there. And last year, they're not be able to do it this year, but last year they did have shuttles within the school where you can get shuttles to Annapolis, and from there you can get a train or a bus pretty much anywhere. They also had some shuttles into DC, if I remember correctly, where they could go into DC for a day. And I think that cured her, I got to be near a big city and I got to be in a big city because, after you visit them a couple of times, I think it wears off a little bit. And she actually really likes being in a small town and a small school because everybody, is friendly, and, the teachers actually know your names and they know who you are. And, when she gets that, hankering to go to a city, she, I guess after COVID can just, hop on a bus or, a shuttle to go to one, and she'll be all right. But I think that's kind of wearing off now.
Thank you. Okay, so this next family says, our son is not an athlete. What are the best activities to be involved with for those not on athletic teams?
So there are a ton of clubs for the students. And it's pretty easy to start a club as well. There's been clubs that have been created over the last 3 years, and it's pretty interesting to see. So there's a lot of clubs out there, and then also there is, a Greek social life as well. So, you don't have to be. Neither one of my girls are athletes, so you don't have to be an athlete to find, friends, and you can find friends pretty quickly as well. So there's, the clubs and the fraternities and sororities.
Yeah, Olivia was involved. She was involved in a few more clubs last year than this year, just because I think when she went to the club fair, I think is what they had, or something like that, she ended up signing up for like 20 clubs or something like that, and that's just too many. So I think she went to a meeting or two for each of them, and then kind of pared it down from there. But yeah, she never felt like she was bored or for lack of wanting something to do or an activity going on with some kind of club or, group doing something.
Thanks. Okay, this is another parent saying, my student is very nervous about making new friends in college. Do you have any advice about entering college and making new friends?
Yeah, join the clubs. And join a lot of them, because if you end up not being interested in one, then you have another one to go to, or a few of them to go to. So, and they have a lot of, even if your student isn't like a super athlete, like my daughter is not a super athlete, but they also have a lot of intramural sports. I think they have a different name for it, club sports. And Olivia does, she was doing tennis and soccer, and she was never really great at either of those, but she had a lot of fun doing the club teams. So even if you're not great, you can go there, and it's more about getting to meet people and having some fun, and getting outside and doing something other than staring at some books or screen.
Yeah, and I think I would just add, tell your student to keep in mind everyone feels the same way. Everyone's apprehensive, those first couple of weeks there. But if you go out and join clubs, join the intramurals, just sit with someone new in the cafeteria, you're gonna make friends really easily. It's really a friendly group of people there.
Absolutely. I remember when my girl had orientation, it was scheduled. I think it was something like 12 or 13 days long. I remember when I went to college, orientation was like an hour. So, they had 13 days and trips to Annapolis and DC and all kinds of great stuff. They had a big community service project that they all did together. So that whole process is going to forge a whole bunch of friendships. And if you were in high school and, you had a hard time finding people with similar interests, you're going to find that at Washington College. My experience, I have two girls and they're very different. Sarah's in the sciences, Abby's in the liberal arts. They go to the same school in spite of each other, not because of each other. And they're able to find, different friend groups. They don't have very many friends or groups that overlap. The only thing is the SGA, but they both have found their own niche within Washington College. And, it's a small school, but it's not that small. There's enough people there that they'll find, their new friends. I know for me, my best friends are all from college, not from high school. And, that's the advice that I gave to both of my girls. And it looks like they're along that same path as well. I know definitely for Sarah, my junior, she's got, way better friends now, closer friends, better friends than she had in high school. And my Abigail's starting to feel that as well.
Thank you. That's great advice. This is a question more about academics. So how do students get their academic advisor? Do they pick one or is it assigned to them?
So I remember Olivia telling me when she was a freshman that every freshman is assigned an advisor, just to try and help them kind of navigate picking out courses for the spring semester, because they do that fairly early into the fall semester before you've actually got to know any teachers really well. And then she had a class she's a biology major. She had a class with a teacher and ended up just asking that teacher when she was going to sign up for classes, oh, hey, can I get your opinion on a couple things? Because her freshman advisor really didn't know all that much about her major and admitted that and was like, maybe you could ask one of your professors, for some help. And that professor ended up taking her on as to be her advisor, and she's the head of the department, which my daughter didn't even know at the time. And so she was like, oh, this is great. She's great. Whenever I have a question, she helps. She weaseled me into a class once when it was full. So, I think one is assigned to you if you don't, but I think most people end up connecting with someone in their major and asking them to be their advisor.
Yeah, it kind of happened the same way for Paige this year. I think they're given a freshman advisor to help them chart that first year. But I know when she was home last semester, she had a lot of questions about laying out her plan for teaching. Now that definitely was the path she wanted to take. And so she was given an advisor in the education department. And so that woman has proved, invaluable in answering questions and helping her rearrange her schedule, and very responsive. It all happened in like 48 hours. And so, again, kudos to the school and, matching the students up where they need to be.
Thank you. All right, now we have a question about dining. So we'll talk about food a little bit. What is the typical meal plan for freshmen? And I'm going to add this part on myself. What do your students think of the food?
I remember there being, I don't know, like 3 or 4, maybe 2 or 3 options for freshmen. And most of them are, swipes. You have so many swipes at the dining hall. And then you also have, I can't remember what they call them, but like Washington College dollars to spend at. There's a couple little dining areas in the bottom of the dining hall where, you can go like grab something and go, or it's, there's a coffee shop, stuff like that. I do remember picking the smallest plan and Olivia not using nearly close to all of her swipes. And she never complained about being hungry. And she never complained about the food. She's always said the food is good. I think she said it's actually better this year. And there are some things where she has said, "Oh, I swear, Mom, when we go back, if they don't have this or this," and I can't. One of them was crab cakes and something about pizza. She said, "If they don't have those, I'm gonna be so upset." And I said, "Well, I mean, if you get there and there's something that you think would be really good, go talk to someone there and ask them if they're going to have it again." And she's done that a couple times, and they've said that it's in the, some of them are kind of specialty things that they don't do all the time, but they have plans to do them. And she was like, "Oh, right, awesome," So yeah, she's never complained about it, and other than she's like, she just doesn't eat that much.
Yeah, I will add, I think we did an unlimited plan for Paige freshman year just to take that anxiety away from, her, and she never, used all of the swipes. And she did limit it down, whatever that next level would be this year. But there is an Instagram page from the dining facility that I stumbled across. I think it's called WC Dining. Maybe Skylar can tell exactly what it is. But the pictures of the food this year is really impressive. And I've kind of gone back to my daughter and said, don't tell me you're hungry with these meals that they're putting out, because there's a wide variety. They seem to have expanded the menu this year. There's always a grill available. There's always a salad bar available. But it looks amazing what they're doing there. So.
Yeah, there's a pretty good variety. Living so close, I've had a couple lunches with my daughter, so she swiped, for herself and me. And yeah, there's a few different stations. There's always, a good variety going on. So for personal experience, I thought it was pretty good, way better than my college experience for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, the Instagram is WC Dining. So if anyone wanted to check it out, you're welcome to go on Instagram. They posts and then they also have stories. So they keep it pretty up to date. Okay, so our next question asks, have your students reached out for assistance with planning or time management? And if so, what resources did they use? So this would be across campus.
I don't know that she really used any specific resource other than maybe relying on some of her teammates. I think she kind of referred to some upperclassmen when she saw her soccer schedule and her maybe test schedule or homework schedule of, how am I going to get this all done? And I think that's how the Writing Center came into play of, this is a great resource that can help you expedite a paper. That's probably, the two, her upperclassmen and then, those centers that help Paige kind of manage her time. But anyone who's an athlete, you have to have good time management skills. So actually in season helped her stay more on task because she knew she had to, get her homework done before practice or before a game.
All right, thank you. Okay, so this next question is about different activities across campus. So what types of activities on campus and in town do the students partake in on weekends?
Well, it seems to me whenever I'm on campus, I always see a ton of flyers for, things going on in the theater. The egg, which is inside the student center, always has something going on, whether it's poetry or music or comedy. There seems to be just stuff going on all the time. Whenever I'm on the campus. And obviously, this year is different. But the first 2 years, there was always something going. There's always multiple things going on. All the clubs put together stuff. The SGA puts together, shows. So there's always something for them to do.
Yeah, the downtown. I mean, it's small, but there's always stuff to do down there. And I know on the weekends they have a farmer's market, and my daughter has raved about that farmer's market, and she loves going to it every Saturday.
Yeah, I would ditto that. As soon as the weather gets warmer, yeah, they definitely go down there and get their breakfast sandwiches and walk along the water and go to the farmer's market. And I think, if Paige isn't playing a game, she's going to see a game as well. And there's some good school spirit. I know lacrosse is a big sport there. And boys had their first game the other day. So I know she was out there cheering them on.
Thank you. I also love the farmers market, so I agree with that. All right. Does anyone have any tips on key purchases for dorm rooms? That's our next question.
I think, you definitely don't have to have it, but maybe like a microwave, a small microwave, and a fridge. And the way my daughter did it last year was she got one, and her roommate bought the other one, so that they both, one, so that they both didn't buy them, and two, so that the expense was kind of evened out a little bit. And like I said earlier, an area rug, even if it's small, really seems to be a big thing that she would want. And what are those string lights that all the students want to have? The fairy light, I guess they're called fairy lights, because all you have is one overhead fluorescent light, and you don't always want that on. So she has fairy lights strung around the room, and then I think she's got a lamp on her desk as well. So those are a couple things I would recommend.
One thing I would recommend is a good step stool. Most of the dorm rooms seem to have storage underneath the bed, so climbing in and out of the bed can sometimes be a challenge, especially if you're not that tall. So we had to get Sarah and Abby, a good solid step stool. So, you could buy something flimsy, but they're, jumping in and out of it at all times. So I would recommend a good step stool.
And I thought you were going to say that Paige was in Minta Martin freshman year, and there is storage above their closet. And she's 5'9" and couldn't reach it without a stool. So yes, a step stool is probably helpful. I would also say bins to go under the beds. There's a lot of area there. They raise their beds as high as they can, and then you can put storage bins underneath, and a fair number of them to hold all of the girl clothes that they bring along. So definitely pack some of those.
Thank you. So this next question, I think, is a little bit more for, the world we're living in now, last semester and this semester. What resources are available for potential students to meet online? Have your students been able to stay connected virtually?
Yeah, a couple of the groups that Livy was involved with last year struggled a little bit at the beginning to keep doing things virtually, because it's a lot easier when you're like, oh, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow in the egg, whatever. So they struggled a little bit, and some of them I think she just lost interest in, but she's been able to connect with those friends, and with their teachers as well, being able to a lot of times I would hear last semester that they would have their class, but then the teacher would break them off into groups, and then the teacher would come in and out of the groups as the different groups were working on their projects. And that seemed to work really well. And he also, all of our professors were always available pretty much anytime. One time that we lost power for a while, and she was stressed out about getting, a project done. And I said, you still have a phone that can email your professor and, let her know that we're out of power and we don't know how long it's going to be. And her professor said, "Oh, that's fine. And here's my cell phone number in case you ever need it." So.
Yeah, I think the teachers did a wonderful job this last semester when they were home in really trying to engage the students more. Paige had science and she did every lab at my kitchen island. And, we'd get the list of things we needed to get that week. And not that it was that odd, but I don't always have balloons and, the right baking soda unopened lying around. And then, they would do the experiments with their lab partner at the same time and then reconvene as a class to discuss the results. So her Spanish teacher did cooking classes where they all had to make churros at the same time. So those types of activities definitely made this past semester or last semester of virtual learning, I think much more engaging, much more beneficial. There's nothing like being in person, and I think everyone's counting down the days till we can do that again. But that definitely helped her, stay connected to the school and her professors.
I think for my Abigail, who's a freshman, her generation is much more adept at communicating electronically than we are. She had started from the beginning of the process and then Admitted Students Day, starting to meet people and, creating group chats at even, in the summertime. So she has, a large group of friends and a few different, text groups and, what other social media they use. But, they've been using that to stay connected as well as socially. So that's kind of taking the place of the in-person, hanging out in the dorm, talking or doing the activities on campus.
Thank you. So this next question I'm going to take, it's more for admissions. Is there a way to sit in on a class? So for some of our prospective students, we actually do have a virtual open house coming up this Saturday, March 13th. If you're not already signed up, we are still open for registration, so you can do so online. And for this open house, we're going to have 2 mini class options for students. There's a lot of options that you get to choose too. So this way you're still able to experience what a Washington College class is like, although it is going to be virtual. So if you're hoping to get kind of that last factor and see what it would be like to be a student in class, I definitely encourage you to check that out. This is a question about safety. So can you share a few thoughts on student safety or the safety of belongings on campus?
Olivia's never felt unsafe there or threatened, and it's a very small school, so getting to from one side to the other doesn't take long. And she was over in Queen Anne last year, which is across the main street. And that crosswalk is actually very well lit, and people actually pay attention to the signs. And as far as feeling safe, she never said she didn't feel safe, or that everybody locks their doors when they're in there or when they're gone, but most of the time, then their windows would be wide open. So, and she was on the ground level, and she never really worried about it and never felt that she had to worry about it.
Yeah, I would second that. I don't think Paige has ever felt unsafe, and like Christina said, it's a small campus. People are always out and about. And as far as the dorm, I think she probably didn't even lock her dorm room as often as she probably should have during the day when she was in and out for classes. So, I think everyone's very respectful of each other, and there hasn't been any issues.
I obviously felt comfortable enough to send my second child to the same school as the first. I think that there's a pretty good campus security presence. And, when both of them went away, they have the conversation and be smart, walk in groups, all that. But there's never been a scenario where they've ever felt, that their safety or security was in jeopardy. It's a pretty safe campus. It's a pretty safe town.
Thank you. Have any of your students been homesick? And if so, do you have any advice for the parents listening?
I'll pass on that question.
Olivia would never admit if she was homesick, but I actually did ask her at one point last year, and she said, "Yeah, I got homesick a couple of times." It just really surprised me. She's a very independent kid, and she always has been. And she said, "Oh yeah, whenever I'd get homesick, I would, I'd call. I'd either call you or dad, or call one of her siblings." Um, and she said it passed pretty quickly. And it only happened a couple of times at the very beginning when she was still finding friends and finding her group, to hang out with. But her and I text all the time, and I know that she has like a set call with her dad once a week with her dad and her grandparents. So I think that helps a lot. I mean, man, when I went to college, it was like, I didn't talk to my parents for weeks on end. And now, I think I talk to her at least once, maybe not on the phone, but a text or something like that every other day. So there's definitely a lot more connectivity. So I don't think they feel as, disconnected from home. When they were going back this year or this semester, and they're not allowed to leave, and they're not supposed to have visitors, and she was like, "Mom, we're gonna go like 3 months, we're not gonna be able to see each other." I was like, "What are you talking about? We can FaceTime." And I was like, "Besides, you don't want to see me." I was like, "You're doing your own thing." So I think, and having a good group of friends, just calling home and talking it out, and having a good group of friends to hang out with definitely helped with that.
Yeah, I would say that as well. The Paige really wasn't homesick. There was one time, like February of last year, where she got pretty ill. And that was the one time I think she was wishing that mom was there. And she did end up in the hospital for a day, and it all went well. And you can walk to the hospital from campus. So, and again, the communication was great. I never had any concerns about her care. And certainly once she got some medicine, started feeling better, the homesickness faded. She did have a friend who also is pretty far. It was having some roommate issues and probably a little homesick. And I think their RA was really helpful. So I would encourage, incoming freshmen to use that resource, even as an initial sounding board, to help them work through a situation, or get, advice from to where to go to get help.
Thank you. So this next question asks, what employment opportunities are there on or around campus for students? Have any of your children worked?
Olivia has not. I know there's lots of little shops around town, but I think Mike might have some better answers since he lives there.
So my oldest, she has had a job. She works for the local shelter. But she did have a paid internship this summer. She was actually doing bird banding. It was one of the paid internships that she could apply for. There's a lot of opportunities on campus. My freshman works on campus at the GIS lab, the Geographical Information Systems lab. Her minor is computer science, so that goes very well for her. So there are a lot of opportunities on campus, and it is a small town. So there's shops downtown. There's a couple grocery stores. There are some employment opportunities out there.
Thank you. Yeah, and we do have a lot of jobs on campus. So, Michael mentioned a couple. We have the River and Field campus, which he mentioned, and then also the GIS lab. But, even in the admissions office, we do hire students as tour guides. So there's lots of opportunities to work on campus. So definitely something to check out. All right, due to time tonight, this is going to be our final question. So this is a great last one. Why did your student choose Washington College?
So like I mentioned earlier, when we had that second visit and Livia finally turned to me and said, "Oh, Mom, I really like it." Before that, she had said, but I had been pushing her pretty hard to go to Washington. And I said, "But it's your choice, and it's your money. So make the choice, that you're going to be happy with." And she asked me why I really wanted to go there. And I said, "You know what? It really gives me the warm, fuzzy mommy feels." I said, "I really feel like, everybody there is interested in you doing well. And some of these bigger colleges, we would go on campus and I would feel stressed just being around those students. I just feel like, it's a good environment. It's, it can be a home away from home. And when I said, okay, so why do you really like it? And it was pretty much an echo of a lot of those same things. And she said, being in a smaller college, to start, because she's got, another 6 to 8 years of school after this, because she's going to be a doctor. She said, starting off on a campus that's small, where I can kind of know everybody, just seems like it'll give me a good, stepping stone to some of those bigger colleges when I move on to, med school.
Yeah, the school size and really the class size is what one of the things that really greatly appealed to Paige. She was leaning toward education, so we obviously were looking for a school that did have that major. She wanted to be within a 5-hour drive from home, and she wanted smaller classes. So Washington College definitely checked all the boxes. And then, to add to it, she was able to join the soccer team, which is her love. So it kind of all fell into place for her, and it's been great.
It was interesting for Sarah. Washington College was 4th or 5th on her list when she was a high school senior, and she was looking at colleges, and she did her first visit and it moved up the ranks. And after the second visit, she turned to me as we drove away and she said, I feel like I belong here. Like I have to go here. So the decision was made. And she still feels that way today. And, Abigail, like I said, my 2 daughters are very different, but she did the same process, the open houses, the college visit, and she felt like she belonged in a totally different part of the school as well. So I ended up, sending both of my girls there.
Well, thank you all so much to our panelists for your time tonight. I know, it's very insightful for everybody listening, so I appreciate it a lot. And I know we got some questions about the Family2Family program, so we are going to be putting the link now to sign up in the chat. So if you're interested in being matched with one of our volunteer families in the program, definitely follow that link and go ahead and sign up. But I hope you all found this panel helpful as you're making decisions and preparing for that first year of college. And if you did ask a question tonight that we were unable to answer live, your student's admissions counselor will be following up later, as long as we had a name associated with the question. And then finally, I wanted to remind everyone that we are open for those public campus visits. And then this Saturday, March 13th, we are hosting our virtual Spring Senior Preview Day. So that's the opportunity for students to sit in on 2 mini classes. And for families, we will also have a student services panel. And in that panel, you'll hear from a lot of different people across campus. The panel will speak with Student Affairs, the Career Center, Counseling Services, the Office of Academic Skills, and our Financial Aid Office. So we hope you'll join us. Take care, everyone, and have a wonderful night.